Welcome to episode 40 of America in Crisis, Breaking the Cycle of Addiction. My name is David Hunt, and I am your host. Please set your DVRs to record. This show could save your child's life. We will start with an update from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. In 2023, there have been over 2,100 opioid-related deaths. Today's guest is Mara Dolan. Mara is running for Governor's Council. She would be the first public defender in the history of the Governor's Council. Since the Supreme Court established the right to a public defender, there have been 52 governor's councils, but not one of them has had a public defender. She has worked for 17 years in juvenile, district, and superior courts across Massachusetts. Mara is the most endorsed Democratic primary challenger in any race in Massachusetts in any year. Her endorsements include State Auditor Diane DiZoglio, Congressman Seth Moulton, and 5 state senators, including Woburn Cindy Friedman, as well as 12 state reps, including Woburn State Rep Richard Haggerty and former Rep Carol Donovan. Mara, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me, David, and I want to congratulate you. I understand today is your 40th show.
Yes, we have a milestone.
You do?
After like 6 years.
That's fantastic.
It was great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here, and I really want to thank you for doing this show, for having me on, but also all the other shows you've done.
Thank you, friend that came to my door. I never would have known you existed.
Really?
That's how I found you.
Wow.
You came to my door.
Now, which friend was that?
That was a gentleman giving out your flyer, talking about you.
Oh.
Said we have this great candidate, and would you consider? And we started asking questions.
That's wonderful.
And when he mentioned what you do with the opioids and stuff, how you believe in treatment, I said, why isn't she on my show?
I think it was Chris DeMeo, because he reached out to me and said, here's this show, you need to go on this show.
Yeah, that was him,
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, let's find out something about you.
Sure.
Where did you grow up?
Well, I was actually born not far from here in Exeter, New Hampshire. Most of my childhood was in upstate New York in Saratoga, but then we moved to Providence, Rhode Island, and then I first came to Greater Boston in 1981. But I've been in Concord, Massachusetts since 1997.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And what school did you go to when you attended?
So I actually have an interesting educational history that is painful to talk about, but I'll share it with you.
Okay.
I'm a high school dropout.
Oh.
I was getting severely bullied and sexually harassed, and it was a different era, and so I didn't get the support I needed, and it was too much for me, and I just stopped going. So I have a GED, and I went back to college. I went to Rhode Island College. I was on the debate team, had an absolutely wonderful time as a competitive debater. I graduated from the University of Rhode Island.
Nice.
And then I went to Boston College School of Social Work, and then I went to the Massachusetts School of Law and got my law degree.
That's awesome. You turned something bad into something good. Look where you've ended up.
You got it. And it's one of the reasons that I understand the struggles of my clients as a public defender.
Do you have a family?
I do.
What can you tell us about your family?
Okay, so I have a daughter and a son-in-law and a grandson, and they are expecting their second grandchild, so I will have a granddaughter this fall, which is really wonderful.
You don't look, not to say this the wrong way, but you don't look old enough to be a grandmother.
Well, thank you. I'm almost a grandmother of 2, so
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah.
Now, what are your beliefs? Personal beliefs?
My personal beliefs.
Can you
yes.
mention pro-choice? Is that allowed?
Yes.
Is that something you want to talk about?
I am pro-choice. I thought you meant sort of my spiritual beliefs, which I was ready to share with you.
No.
I'm a 6th-generation Unitarian Universalist. I do believe in God. I'm a Christian.
Okay.
I believe in doing good. I believe in serving the public good. That's why I do the work that I do. And I am pro-choice. I really believe that individuals have the right to make their own healthcare decisions, and that's very important to me.
It is. I mean, some people put a whole campaign on one issue
Yes.
because of their religious belief.
Yes.
Other people will throw it on a different issue.
Yes.
Some will look at who's the less of the evils.
Right.
Everyone's not going to agree with everything you say.
Right.
But okay, what's going to affect me more?
Right.
So that's what you've got to go at.
Right.
Check out your website, check out their website,
Exactly.
and see, okay, what lines up with my beliefs and what is going to help me the most, who's going to back mostly what I do.
Right.
I don't think there's been a candidate out there yet that's completely 100% everything.
No, there's never a candidate you agree with on absolutely everything, though I do believe that the values of this district are my values. And they're different from my opponent's values and her record, so, yeah.
Okay, what other experience do you have?
What other experience? Oh my gosh, I have so much experience.
We can go on, we've got time.
Well, in addition, I've been a public defender for 17 years. I've worked all across Massachusetts, as you know and as you've talked about. I've also done a lot of communications work. I'm a communications professional. I was the Senate President's Communications Director. I was the press secretary for the Secretary of State's campaign, and I was advisor on Senator Ed Markey's campaign. So I've done a lot of communications work as well, which is one of the reasons I really appreciate what you're doing. And I had a local cable show myself.
Nice. Want to talk about that real quick?
I did, yes. In Concord, in those days it was called Concord Carlisle Television. Today it's called the Minuteman Network.
Okay.
And it was about policy and government. I had elected officials and candidates and experts on policy talking, and it was great. And I know how much work goes into doing one of these shows, so that's one of the reasons I appreciate it.
I like to get to know the person, because
Yes.
anybody can come on, give their political views, but I like to know the person, the flesh, the blood, the person, what they
Yeah.
grew up at, their struggles,
Yeah.
just so they can relate, like, oh, that's just another politician. Well, no, I mean, they have the same struggles we do. You have the same growing up, trying to get jobs, trying to get the economy. You faced
Yeah.
everything we do,
Yeah.
just to make you a person and not just somebody running for an office. I like to get to know the actual person, like, oh my gosh, she went through that. My kid went through that, or I went through something like that. Look where she is now, where she's risen.
And I really appreciate that, because I haven't wanted to talk about my story all that much, because frankly it's painful. So there are a couple things I'll share, but haven't talked about the educational stuff, and so it is good for voters to know that, to understand that. That's why I understand the struggles that so many people have, because I went through them myself. But I have shared before, and as you know, my sister died of an alcohol use
I heard
disorder.
about that. I'm very sorry about that.
Thank you, which is one of the reasons that I care so much about substance use disorder and how we're treating people with a substance use disorder in our courts.
Which we'll get more into detail
Yes.
later in the show,
Yes.
of course, because this is a show on substance abuse.
Exactly.
Now, do you agree
Yeah.
that addiction is a disease?
Absolutely.
And why? Okay.
Absolutely. Well, that's
Take all the time you need on
Yeah,
this.
well, the science is very clear on this. Addiction is a chronic, recurring disorder of the brain that does not respond to negative consequences. We've seen this over and over and over. If suffering cured addiction, no one would have one.
Yeah.
So it's just madness to think that if you just impose a negative consequence on someone who's suffering from a substance use disorder, that they're going to change. That doesn't do it.
It doesn't do it at all.
No,
They
it
need the
doesn't work.
treatment. They need the
Yes,
help.
Support. Support is what works. Right.
They also need what got them to that level. Is it recreational use, or am I just so damn addicted that I can't get off of it for anything?
Right.
I want to bring something up real quick.
Yes.
I know many construction workers, even some firefighters, sometimes they get hurt on the line of duty.
Right.
They fall through a roof, they get hurt, they drop something, whatever. They're in the hospital, they're given their opioid painkiller. They're not getting high from the stuff at all.
No.
They're just stopping the pain. But after a while, they go to get off of it, like, oh great, this is great, I don't have to take this stuff anymore. Their body starts going back. And it's like, they need that stuff in them. They're not getting high, there's no pleasure from it. It's just their body feels like crap. And they got to find a way to help the people like that.
They
But
do.
they're not doing this to get high.
No. In fact, I read Matthew Perry's memoirs. Did you read them?
No, I've heard about
You
them.
have to read them. It's very, very powerful. He wrote this book not long before he passed of an opiate use disorder because he wanted people to know just how difficult it was. He himself spent $7 million
Yes, I heard
of his
that.
own money on treatment, and he still died from an opiate use disorder. So what does this tell you about people who don't have those resources? And he also said that he would have given up absolutely everything about his incredible success to have been spared being addicted to opiates. And it happened because he was in an accident and he was given painkillers.
He
That's how
never
it happened
asked for
after
that. He never started
Right.
doing it
Right.
recreationally. And you
Right.
just can't get off the stuff.
Right. No, it's
then when
tragic.
the doctor doesn't want to give you any more, he said, hey, it's about time you come off. So now you're turning to the street for them.
Right.
Which brings us to my favorite subject, fentanyl and xylazine, which doesn't help you. I keep using the phrase, when you buy from a drug dealer, this stuff does not have the good housekeeping seal of approval. You don't know what you're getting. And now over half the opioids on the street that have been made have fentanyl in them. And 40% of that has xylazine. And for those that haven't watched my last 40 shows, actually it just started coming out, but xylazine is an animal tranquilizer. It was never, ever, ever made for human use. but they want to put that in to give you something extra. So instead of John's drugs, I'll get Paul's drugs. Paul gives me that extra boom. And what does xylazine do? It holds the high a little bit longer, probably like 9 hours longer than just you take the drugs, you wear off of it. So now you get the effect. The problem is you're running around for 9 hours. So you come, somebody helps you, you get Narcan. 9 hours later, you overdose again. You go down because you've still got the xylazine in you. You've never removed the xylazine. You don't go to the hospital. You wanted to use it, say, oh, I'm fine now, I'm great. They saved me, I had my Narcan. This is awesome, I'm gonna go out and do something. I'm gonna drive home, which is the worst thing you do is get behind the wheel of a car. And that's when disaster happens. So the stuff you're buying now on the street is absolutely horrible.
It's horrifying.
In fact, they now actually have to have test strips that you can actually test and see,
Yes.
does your drug have xylazine or fentanyl in it? And that actually is available to our District Attorney Marion Ryan's office. She provides that to different programs, local programs, and that way there, we can give those out. Now, I know Marion is a big advocate to trying to get people in prison off of the substance. Locking you up, saying, okay, you're in the cell, you can't do drugs anymore, you should be cured. No, that doesn't work. She's got multiple programs, and especially the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office has programs that give people a great chance of a new future and less likely to return to prison. One of them is the Matador program, which we had Louis Diaz on at one of my original shows. That there's a whole show on that, so Google that up. It's on YouTube. It's under Louis Diaz, under Middlesex County, and it'll show you what they're doing in prison to try to get these people off, so when they come out, they're not interested in drugs anymore. It's completely out of their system. So that we can only commend the sheriff and, of course, D.A. Ryan for the work that she's done, which is being emulated in other communities across the country.
Yep, it's remarkable work.
Now, what can you tell us about drugs having on the developing brain? And for our viewers, developing brain means people that are just off the teen years, maybe 20, 25 at the most. Your brain is still developing. How does drugs influence that brain?
Well, I'm absolutely not an expert, but we do know that the science of brain development is very clear that the brain is not fully developed until you're 25. And there are some significant differences between the developed brain and the brain in children and emerging adults. They don't have the same ability to assess risk. They're more susceptible to peer influence, and they have a much greater capacity for change than people who are over 25. And that's what the Supreme Judicial Court cited when they recently made Massachusetts the first state in the country to hold that a sentence of life without the possibility of parole is unconstitutional for those under the age of 18. But clearly, as I said, I'm not an expert, but the developing brain, I would think, would be more susceptible to damage in a younger age. Certainly we know that of cannabis use, that young cannabis users can develop even psychosis, which is terrifying.
So basically I read in your flyer that you dropped off that you believe in the science.
I do.
You actually believe in the science.
Yes.
I mean, there are rumors anywhere. You can watch my TV show. I try to base it on the science, but now with everybody on YouTube and everybody's an expert and they think they know, everything you have in there is based on science.
Yes.
So we trust the doctors, the people actually have the MD.
Because I'm not an expert. That's why I rely on science.
Exactly. Yes. I believe in the science too.
Yeah.
So after 17 years as a public defender, you're moving to seek a seat on the Governor's Council. Exactly what does the Governor's Council do?
That's a great question. If you care who our judges are, you need to care who your Governor's Counselor is. The Governor's Council confirms our judges, parole board members, and commutations, among other duties. But those are the three that they spend the most time on.
I'm sure other people are trying to run for this position.
Yes.
How is your 17 years as a public defender going to make a difference?
Well, for one thing, we've never had a full-time experienced public defender on the Governor's Council. So the Supreme Court established the right to counsel in 1963. And since then, we've had 52 Governor's Counselors, but not a single one has been a full-time public defender. It's a perspective that is badly needed and badly overdue. The things that I talk about on this campaign, and I know you've paid a lot of attention to what I've said about how we treat people with a substance use disorder in our courts, are things that I know because I'm a public defender. They're not something that I read somewhere. It's not a study. It's not a report in a newspaper. It's because of my experience every day working in our courts and seeing what happens there. So we need someone who has that frontline knowledge, and we haven't had that before. And also, the ratio of former prosecutors to former public defenders who are judges in our trial courts is 2 to 1. And the majority of our judges overall come from a corporate law background.
Oh, yeah.
If you are working with the indigent, as I am, you have conversations with your clients. My clients tell me about their lives. I understand the issues that they're facing. So I know things about those folks that someone who doesn't do that kind of work can have any way of ever understanding. And so I will take that with me as governor's counselor, and I think it's a perspective that we really need.
And more importantly, how can your experience personally help the residents of Mass compared to just anybody? I mean, sure, who's ever there has their good, they have their bad. How can your personal experiences help us?
I can advocate to make sure that our values are reflected in our court system. The Governor's Council is the gateway to an entire branch of government, the judicial branch. We have 3 branches of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. You do not get into the judicial branch without going through the Governor's Council. It's incredibly important. And I know from talking to voters in this district, and I've worked very hard on this campaign to meet with people all over the district, that I share their values, that it's about compassion, it's about rehabilitation, it is absolutely about protecting public safety, and that comes first. But the people of this district don't want to see people sent to jail because they're suffering from an addiction and they've relapsed, which violates the condition of their release. They want to make sure that children are treated appropriately by our juvenile courts. They do want to raise the age of juvenile court jurisdiction. They are very distressed about the racial disparities in our courts. Massachusetts is worse than the national average on racial disparities. So we need change. We need change, and that's why I'm running, to make that change.
Okay. This isn't going to come out right.
Go ahead.
I want to ask the question the way a voter would ask the question. What makes you think you can make a difference? I mean, it's been business as usual all these years. What makes you think you're special? What can you do?
I have been fighting for justice and equal treatment under the law throughout my career. It's what I care about really more than anything, is that people are treated equally under the law. That's what I do every day in my work as a public defender, to make sure that people's rights are protected. And I'm pretty good at it. I've been doing it a long time, and I'm pretty good at it. And also, because of my communications background, as governor's counselor, I'll use the platform of the Governor's Council to advocate to make sure that our court system does reflect the values of our district. That's not something that we've had, and I will make a difference. Ask anybody who's ever worked with me, I'll tell you.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with us, to our viewers, that I have not asked you?
That's such a good question. Well, I want to make sure that people know this race comes down to the Democratic primary on September 3rd. There is no Republican on the ballot. There's the Democratic incumbent, and then there's me. I'm the challenger. I ran 2 years ago, and I almost won. We just need 50 more votes per town to win. We need change in our courts, and I'm the candidate who will bring it. That's why I have a record number of endorsements that I'm very proud to have, and I keep getting more all the time. And that's why I'm asking for your vote, because I reflect the values of this district, and I will bring the change that we need.
Now, obviously, my advice to all voters, check the websites of any candidate running, make an informed decision. Like I said, every candidate is not going to agree with what my thoughts are. But on me, opioids, drugs, this should be a major, major factor on what's going on. I might not like what she says about item A, but when she's talking what she's doing on drugs, I mean, that's, to me, that's something that I need, that I'm going to vote for. I want to know what you're doing, so check out what all the candidates are doing. That way you're making an informed decision. You got to hear from Mara, which I'm very impressed. Just reading the brochure doesn't do justice. I'm so glad I got you on here today.
Thank you so much.
So, a couple things I want to mention. We have Vigil on the Common. I mentioned this last week, on August 29th on Thursday at 6:30 on Woburn Comic. I will be giving out free fentanyl and xylazine test strips. That's courtesy of District Attorney Marion Ryan. CPR barriers, breathing barriers, along with other useful items from the Massachusetts Department of Health, is all going to be free. And again, that's on Woburn Common. So, before we go any further,
I want to check my calendar and make sure that I can go. hang on, I'm checking my calendar because I want to make sure that I can join you because I would love to go and I'd be honored. I can go. I will be there. Thank
Maybe
you.
I could talk to Carmen and maybe give you a small speaking spot.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Okay.
I'd like to present you.
Oh, I'm so touched. I really am. I'm very
Thank
honored.
you so much for appearing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
My closing. I would like to thank our guest, Mara Dolan, for appearing today. As always, thank you for watching. Please share this program with your social media friends. If you or someone you know is suffering from a substance abuse disorder, contact the Massachusetts Substance Use Helpline, and that, of course, is toll-free, 1-800-327-5050. If you're even thinking about suicide, you can speak to a specialist at the new number 988. It's like the 911 number for suicide. They can help you. They're trained. If you need to talk to somebody, 988. This show can be seen on a rotating basis on Woburn Public Media stations and on demand at their website and on YouTube. As always, thank you for the staff at Woburn Public Media Center for making the show possible. Please enjoy as our closing theme, Rise Above the Noise by Fireheart. So the credits are important contact information. So watch all the way through. There's contact information for other shows I've done that may be able to help you. For America in Crisis, Breaking the Cycle of Addiction, I am David Hunt, and it is great to be back.
It is what we bear. The whispers that I hear behind my back are those who never lost a child, a friend, and so they lack a sense of loss, a peace that's gone with no return. Above the noise is how we cope, above the noise is how we learn. The most important things in life I found comes deep within the heart, the purest sound of those who won the fight. Now they found a life is true, a life so rich above the ground. We are people who care. Listen to the sound. Rise above the noise in the air. The sound not heard is what we bear. We are people who care. Listen to the sound. Rise above the noise in the air. The sound not heard is what we bear. The sound not heard